I don't know how often in your life you've been faced with a moment when the only response was, I guess we're doing this now. I heard a common trope just this morning about how the things we do or the things that happen aren't what define us. It's the way we respond to them that reveals who we are. And who we are isn't only based on our hardwiring. I had spent a lot of my life attributing these kind of responses to personality type. I mean, I had a family that sold their collective consciousness for a while to the Myers-Briggs system. And when I was younger, and despite my rebellion against being pigeonholed by a letter, it had clearly seeped in. So when I think about flexibility, spontaneity, adaptability, I really just have always ended up thinking about our hardwiring. But lately I've moved on from that. I mean, I'm always late to things, but I'm now able to see a little more of the underlying contextual factors in our ability to choose our responses. Now, apply this thinking to the confines of the music business. A life of shared experiences, rites of passage, street smarts, and business know how that is required to navigate a path to actually carving out a life in the music business. Do you want to take a shot at writing songs for your career, become a country singer, tour the world, become the biggest promoter in town? You will quickly see how these characteristics are essential ingredients, not just for success, but especially longevity. For Skye Wallace, it becomes quickly apparent that change has been a constant, by chance and by choice. Adapting isn't just a pivot. And I'm just now realizing that I should have pulled a Ross from Friends soundbite here. But adapting is not just a pivot. It's continual motion, continual shedding of some layers in order to take on new necessary ones. What makes Skye's story so good is how many layers she has had to go through to be who she is today. Skye Wallace is an indie rock artist and producer from Toronto, Ontario. The move to Toronto was a choice to adapt, sort of. With 5 albums, official at least, in a span of 10 years, recording with highly respected producers and players in Canada, Skye has touched the high markers for an indie artist, while not losing herself in any of them. Every album, every phase has been a flex. None more potent than fiercely taking on all the unrelenting demands of rock and roll motherhood in an attention industry that has never been comfortable with that blend. Adapting is not for the moment, it's for what comes next. Skye is clearly built for what comes next. My name is Glenn Erickson. This is Almost Famous Enough. Thanks for spending your time with us. This is Skye Wallace. It's fine. Everything will be just fine. It'll be perfect. But thank you. I mean, this is our first introduction, Skye.
Yeah.
So I'm Glenn.
It's great to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. I mean, you always, I've said this with a number of artists, you live this unfair advantage. The more you do this in your career and the more you have to work with press, where you meet people who feel like they already know you to some degree and you have no idea who they are. And that's
Totally.
a really weird social dynamic to navigate, I'm sure.
For sure. I
in
liken
life,
it
right?
to I had a coffee shop job at the ferry terminal when I was a teenager. And in fact, I was the manager there. So I worked 6 days a week. So for a lot of people, I would run into them in town and they'd be like, oh, hey, how's it going? Skye, I know this about you and this. And I'm their person that they go to and they see me every day on the commute, whatever. And
Yeah.
they're one of 150 commuters that I see, I can kind of remember bits and pieces, but it's it's a skewed
Yeah, you see all the faces. I mean,
relationship.
don't you think that's kind of funny? Everybody
Yeah.
likes to think, I mean, coffee shop's one of the perfect examples where you have your person,
Yeah.
they make you feel like a regular. And
Totally.
the truth is they see 800 people go by and
Yeah.
they're doing the best they can just to make you feel like a regular.
Yeah, totally. And
I'm
it
sure.
boils right down to even parasocial relationships on the internet,
Yeah,
yoga with
yeah.
Adrian. Adrian's my best friend. I know
Yeah.
this.
Oh man, that's so true these days. That's so true. And then you meet them. I mean, I'll scroll TikTok, right? And you'll see like red carpet interactions, where
Right.
some of these people who are at all the galas every year become their own version of a little mini celebrity, which is really weird. And then you think that there's probably literally no existing relationship between these people. It's all on the camera. It's
Yeah.
really weird. It's a
It is
weird
really
thing we've
weird.
created, right? But
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah, so you and I will probably from this point going forth have become online friends, and you know,
We're real
who
friends.
who knows where we'll find a place to make it a little more
Mhm.
reality. Maybe you'll go on tour, maybe I'll come out east. We'll see what
Yeah,
happens. But
absolutely.
speaking of that, actually a great jumping off point, Sky, is you just played some shows or a
Yep.
show. Um, which I think from my observation seems like it was kind of the first one in a while.
It was the
Um,
first full band show back since I had a baby.
yeah, exactly. That's like a
Yeah.
really big deal. That's
Yeah,
like
totally. Yeah.
that's like 2 feet in, right? So just tell me how it went. How did it meet expectations? How did it meet your fears? Um,
Yeah. It
you
I
know?
it honestly, I had a lot of just, like, trepidation, I guess, going into it. You feel so rusty because it had been I did do a full band show 3 weeks before my due date, so it wasn't as long as it could have been, like, it was in July, but it was still
Yeah,
quite a while, and so I had all this, like, "Oh, do I still know how to do this?" Like, but walking into, like, the first rehearsal with my band, I was like, "Ah, no worries," like that so that worry was off the table, and then it was like, "Oh, we're
yeah,
bringing the in-ears, like, the in-ear monitor rig in for this," like, and I have this, like, the fear comes back as far as like just being faced with like a bunch of tech stuff going wrong as it has over
yeah.
the course of knowing this rig and my friend Jason who plays guitar and keys with me had just like souped it up and it went like so smoothly with that thing and then get
Oh,
to the
that's
gig and
great.
it's just like it was a nice like really full room and I'd never been to this venue before and it was called the Sound Garage on Geary, and it was just a really awesome event. And like
Mm.
Ace of Wands was putting out their record as well, so it was kind of like this co-headline thing. So just like everything that I was afraid of didn't materialize, and in fact, kind of went the opposite. So that felt
Was
really
it a
nice.
private event? Did I see?
No,
Like, oh
no,
no,
it
okay.
was
That wasn't that. Okay.
fully public.
Awesome. I mean, I don't know that everybody listening, unless you're a musician for a while, you wouldn't understand the dynamics of it in ear. And the easiest way I
Yeah,
could describe it for people is it sort of literally takes you out of the normal dimension of just listening in a room, right? Where like now everything's being curated and controlled in your ear, literally. And the problem with that is that so many musicians, you grow up with a feel for something, right? You feel
yeah,
in a room the volume of the amps, the dynamic of how hard your drummer is hitting things
yeah.
changes depending on the dynamics of the ceiling, how many bodies are in a
Hmm.
room. And you learn that feel, and in ears take the feel all away in a moment. And so
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
pretty
That's
hard
actually
dynamic to shift.
something that we've been working on is like, like we bring our cabs for our amps for sound, like stage sound and
Yeah.
like I usually have one ear out off just so I can kind of hear the front of house as well. And what we're starting to do is put like two little mics pointing towards the audience so we can hear the actual room as well in the ears, which is kind of sweet. Just like
Yeah.
skewing a little bit more of that like live sound. And like one good thing, because I feel you on all of this. First of all, I was like very like, why would we play to a click? Like that sounds crazy. But it actually is kind of nice to have it like fade into the background while you're playing and
Mhm.
you're kind of like, I don't even hear it anymore. I'm just like on time. And then also not having the monitors up front like muddy the sound for the people at the front. It
Yeah.
has been
100%.
interesting as well. So like, yeah, just like, lots of gives and takes.
Yeah,
Column A, column B.
you have to just believe in all those payoffs and kinda, like, step
Yeah,
off that cliff, right, and just do it
for
type
sure.
thing.
And it's been
Definitely
a cliff.
changes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a cliff for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
I've seen some people fall off it pretty hard in a performance, unfortunately,
oh
sometimes,
no, that's the
but, I think
worst.
it's funny because this isn't really the topic to talk about, but it's just funny to me how, like, when you most people's understanding is that they just watch, like, some live performance like the Grammys or some idol performance, where the artist kind of rips the thing out of their ear all of a sudden, and they usually have some sort of a grimace or scowl, like something's gone wrong, like, um,
Yeah,
and then everybody's like, what's wrong? What did he do?" But yeah, that's, who knows what's going on. But that I mean,
totally.
that could totally kill you. The
Yeah,
choice to take it out could sink you way faster than not knowing what's happening in your ear.
for
Unless
sure, for sure.
unless something went crazy. But,
Yeah.
so you're back on the saddle, you're or
Mhm.
on the riding the bike again, whichever metaphor suits you best personally. But, um, and I see a whole bunch of shows lined up, for the
Yeah.
summer in July and stuff. So definitely things moving forward. But before I get all the way to just what's happening and moving forward, I love to just find out how you got where you are now a little bit. So Skye Wallace grew up actually you're in Toronto right now.
I
You've been living
am,
in Toronto,
like 10-ish
um,
years.
10-ish years now. Okay. But
Yeah.
that's not where you started. You started out on the West Coast.
Well,
Yes,
actually,
or
I was
even
born in
before that?
Scarborough.
You were? Oh, I
Fun
missed that
fact.
thought.
Well,
Oh, there you go.
I moved to the West Coast when I was 15, and at that
Okay.
point, me and my family had already moved around a lot, so we were, like, staying in one place, like, for a year or 2 max, and lived all over. And then we ended up in BC. Yeah, I finished high school there, and then I moved to Vancouver on my own and, started doing music out of there, actually,
Yeah.
and decided to move to Toronto when it felt right, and I don't know, just felt the pull whenever I came here, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, well, that
strange
that to
life.
me is a sign of what I'm learning doing podcasting now and internet
Mm,
research is that people who move around a whole bunch, then then researchers will have just they just wanna land on one thing, so they just landed on you were Vancouver before you were Toronto.
yes.
This is what I'm learning right now, right?
There's a
About
lot of,
stuff
like
like this.
yeah, there's a lot of kind of false lore out there.
Oh,
Like, some people are like, "Oh, you're from
absolutely.
the East Coast," and I'm like, "No, I just have some family there." Forget it. Like, there's so many things out there, but anyway, yeah, it's
Or it'll blow certain things up, like, I can't
yeah.
remember who I was talking to, and it just kept wanting to, like, blow up the fact that they were born in England. Oh, it was Sean Hall, the guy who's known as the
Oh,
harpoonist. You know
yeah, yeah,
Sean.
yeah, I know
Yeah,
Sean.
so the fact that he was, like, born in England and stuff, and, like, that's, like, this much of his life to him now. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? But the internet keeps
totally.
just carrying it over and over and over and over again.
What
But
is
but
even
you said Vancouver is where, like, at least at least your, like, personal expression of
yeah,
music. But before that, like, I find interesting is your background has, like, very early on classical training,
yeah,
vocal training, like, you got put into voice lessons
yeah,
very early, and, I mean, outside of and again, we'll see if this is internet lore or not, that you had a cool aunt and uncle who introduced you to Sloan, that seems to be living
yeah,
forever and stuff on the internet.
yeah, for
But
sure.
but being in the classical training world or, in voice from a very young age, that's a very distinct track that doesn't I'm gonna say this sort of, like, with little trepidation, to get it right, but in my experience, like, a lot of the classical trained stuff doesn't lend itself to what I would call creativity in the way that
Mhm.
we call creativity as in the actual writing and creating original scores and things like that. They don't always overlap, right? So,
Totally.
um, I'm curious at what point, because there's a certain point that it's obvious that you started writing songs and stuff, but what point did that actually start to germinate inside of you while you're doing all of these things? Like, when did my own voice, my own expression, my own
Yeah.
ideas start to come out?
Well, so my like background with the classical was an interesting one because I followed my teacher. We started doing, like the Kiwanis festivals and all the performance stuff, but then he ventured off on his own and he was like a classical, like, did a lot of operettas and things, like this kind of guy from Wales. And then he started his own curriculum and was very free with like how we'd bring our own sheet music in. We could do like contemporary stuff like musical theater, all this kind of fun stuff, as well as all the stuff that he was introducing to us. We still did, sight reading and a lot of the technical stuff. And but for that reason, I think there was a little bit more of this like, creative elements infused into it. However, like the technical side of it, I'm so glad have now being a touring artist to have that foundation of like the technique and everything has been so helpful. But I also think that you touched on something really important, which was that, like is singing or like doing anything with any kind of specific technique puts you in this box. And I think that box is what kind of drove me to be doing rock music because it felt like my voice was meant to sound pretty. And then I was starting to do like write my own music and I was like a girl with a guitar doing folk music because that's what I could access. Like that's what I could make at the time,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what I was writing. And so I think that that box really frustrated me and pushed me to like be a lot more creative and go down different avenues that
Mm.
maybe I wouldn't have otherwise. Because I wanted to put distortion on my acoustic guitar and then it kind of like devolved from there. Or I guess
Yeah.
evolved. Why did I say devolved? I don't know.
Yeah, well, you said distortion, so maybe that tracks with that,
Distortion.
um but I mean, that sort of, I mean, we'll maybe get into some examples of this. It kind of tracks with, I think, some hallmarks of a Skye Wallace career as I see it from the outside about not wanting to be in a box and
Yeah, I
having
guess
having
it's true.
something to do about it. It seems to be like that's a pretty obvious where that may have got its start too,
hmm
as far as first expressions go. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so you are also one of these people who got started at it pretty early with a sense
Mm.
of independence. Like, I'm just going to start doing this.
Yeah.
Um, Stories of you just, not only going in and just making your own first EP, but then doing the thing that a lot of people have to do if they're like, they want more, they want the whole thing. So you start having to book your own shows, even if you can't find conventional shows, take what you can get and play
Totally.
everything and suffer through transportation challenges and suffer through scheduling or any of these sort of aspects that make it even harder if you're making things for yourself. So I guess my curious about that is most people's story that do that, I'm finding, find legs to be able to do that, like even in their teens, right? Their late teens, because they're in a band. It's easier
Mhm.
to do it with a crew, right? There's like
Totally.
you lose all that vulnerability, you lose all
Yep.
that like fear and sort of like not sure of yourselfness because you're propped up by one another,
Pooled
and
resources.
yeah, and both the practical part of the pooled resources
Yeah.
and then the more sort of like intangible parts of like you can sustain a false hope with one another if we just keep going through these motions with each other and you see someone else believing
Absolutely.
and like they keep showing up, I'm going to keep showing up. And
Yeah.
I think that's a contributing factor to why most solo artists, I find it's not till their 20s and college
Mhm.
and after college before they really get sort of the legs to try that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
is that just a hallmark of your sort of personal character and tenaciousness, or did you also just because there's a lot of fortuitousness in this industry, like did you just have opportunities show up for you that you got to walk through those doors?
I not really, to be honest. I think I went ahead and like I toured my first EP when I was like I think I did the EP when I was 19 and I toured when I was 20 and I went out just like solo across to like from Vancouver to Halifax and I couldn't drive and I just thought that's what you were supposed to do. So I like called venues and emailed venues and like took the train and I played no, wait, I didn't even play on the train. I was just, like, bouncing around. Because I moved around so much, I had family where I could, like, sleep on couches or like spare rooms or whatever. So that was helpful. But I was just like, no, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to go around and like play. Some shows were great, some shows weren't. And
Mm,
whenever it's that catch-22 thing too, when you've never been booked before, no one wants to book you.
yeah,
I made shows happen. I like was like, oh well, what if I get a PA rented and then I can go to this coffee shop that I go to all the time and then my friends can come. And the coffee shop was like, yeah, sure, why not? We don't really do that, but like, it was a
yeah.
lot of like, I didn't know that you couldn't do those, that you like that it was difficult to do those things, and I encountered a lot of difficult moments, like when I first went on tour, like iPhones were brand new and the maps were kind of suspect and I got lost a lot. And, that was, there's a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of low
Yeah, we've
moments and
got
then
great
there's
stories
still.
about that. Like,
Yeah.
what a golden era of and it's not that long ago. This is what's
No.
surprising me. When I think about it, I'm like, that's not that long ago that we had to print a Yahoo map off.
Yeah.
And
Or like
then
MapQuest. Remember
yeah,
MapQuest?
MapQuest, that's actually probably what it was. And then, you know, I'm from out west and then show up in, you know, Kitchener and
Yeah.
drive up to a place and you didn't bother to check the hours it was open and wonder why nobody's there yet because the place isn't even anyhow, like going through all the
Yeah.
stuff. The whole different
Totally.
very different world to be growing up and trying all that stuff. But I mean, you talk about it the way that I think is very common, but almost like integral. Like it's almost like it's only something for the young to do. That sort of blind ambition um, that you'll just kind of you don't need to know all the facts, and if you did, you might get into your
You might
head and
not.
not try it. Right?
Totally.
Like you need
Totally.
that. Like, yeah, you need to like I liken it to um when I was about 20 years old and out in like Chilliwack area,
Hmm.
lower mainland, and my friends, and they were like, let's go like we'd been climbing the train bridges just climbing the rivets and jumping into the Sardis River and they're like, let's go jump off one of these cliffs we heard about at Cultus Lake
Yep. Called Slake. Yep.
and I wouldn't have known that I might have a little fear of heights. I didn't think I had any fear of heights. I hadn't thought about it, but not until you're standing 80 feet above the water, right? Do
Yeah.
you all of a sudden, and there wasn't a path back up the way you came down. Do you
Oh man.
recognize what that feeling is? And you're better off without it, right? Like I would never
Yeah.
have gotten out on that edge if I knew what that feeling was. So
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
feel like that's people's like path into music so
Yeah, for
often,
sure, for sure,
right? Hard
absolutely.
knocks, hard
Hard
knocks.
knocks, yeah, for sure. It's like, would anybody really now I feel like I'm older, like, it's like, would I do that again? No, not right now.
Yeah,
Like, I'm at a point it's not even like a like less energy necessarily, but, like, it's like, I don't know, I like myself. I, like, respect myself
yeah, that's
enough to,
pretty
like I'm
important.
not gonna be sleeping in on any floors anymore, Like, I had some
Yeah.
bad times where I, like, definitely paid my dues,
Yeah, I mean, the
extensively.
band I ended up on, like, the bulk of my music journey, like, we
Yeah.
didn't come together until I was 34, 33,
Mhm.
34. And yeah, the same consensus of guys was like, we're not like we're past that phase where we're hitting friends up in every town and sleeping on their floor. We're gonna have to
Yeah,
figure out a way to do a little better business and pay for decent hotel rooms and do this
totally.
differently. You've like so in like obviously that's your jumping off point into this. I don't know how you were
Yeah.
feeling at the time, whether like some people would characterize it as like it's all or bust. Like I don't have a plan B, or how tight your family is to making you feel like you need another career option, or whether they fully embrace it. What were you going through
Mhm.
in that time when it came to your outlook about this as your future?
I mean, I super lucked out in that I have a very close-knit family around me who, like, they're not flush with cash or anything, but they were very much like, like, "Follow your dream, doesn't matter if it makes money, like, you just gotta, like, do the
Mm,
thing and not
yeah.
regret not
What a
doing it.
gift.
Yeah, honestly, like, I don't know if I would still be doing things at this point. If not, because just there's so many moments where, like my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, they've all been so supportive and they come to all my shows when they can, like, physically, geographically.
Yeah.
Um, and like yeah, that's everything. And I know so many people who don't have that. And I don't know how you would surmount that
Yeah.
because there's so many other factors that are up against you in so many moments, that's like you're already fighting all these battles. So to have people in your corner is just
Yeah.
like there's nothing better than that.
Yeah. I mean, I want to ask you some questions they can get into a little bit later about, um, like you've been very outspoken about a number of things, at least not outspoken in the pejorative sense, in the you're very free to just speak your mind sort of
Mhm,
sense, either through your lyrics or just when you discuss things, press or socials or whatever. Uh, that usually, either comes from a number of places, I think, but I'm always curious about, I think a lot of that it comes from how you're brought up and sort of either the freedom or endorsements or security that you feel that
mhm.
way. Sounds like that might overlap with the way you just described your family sort of endorsing you to just do what you want, and you know, these sort of typical societal consequences aren't necessarily a concern. Is that does that possibly track? Is that an overlap to your sort of confidence in just sort of doing things your way, saying
Yeah.
what you feel you need to say and not sort of bowing to other pressures?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in an age where like all of the weaknesses of the world that we live in, like the cracks are starting to show, and I think it's important to discuss things amongst ourselves as far as like, is the way things are and actually the equitable fit like maybe things could change. Maybe this isn't just the way it is kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
find that with like all sorts of inequities, specifically to music too. Like I was even having a conversation the other day with like a couple of people who also musicians experiencing just like high levels of burnout and I've been there as
Mhm.
well and just like speaking to each other is so powerful, because the reaction is so often to turn inward and to, like, separate yourself.
Yeah.
So from, like, an emotional standpoint, from, like, a connective, I think now more than ever, like, in general, people need to be connective, and so, like, that's what I use social media for is, like, sometimes I just like to speak my mind. I'd like to speak about, like, what my specific experience is or, ways that we can connect. Because I mean, like, that's also why we write songs too, right? To have that, like, that connectivity, that person-to-person thing, like,
Yeah.
live is so important to me for that reason because I think it opens up these conversations, it opens up these, emotional faculties that, like, even a rock show, the frequencies of a rock show, you can like dance and start to like, cry and feel something that you might not
Yeah.
have otherwise. So I think there's something very like entwined about all of that together. And so I like to
Yeah.
use whatever my music stuff is to kind of entwine with like, just conversations and thoughts and
Yeah.
being connected.
I agree. I mean, you hear a lot of, I mean, you've probably heard before somebody say the line like, just like stick to your music rather than like share your opinions online. I think a lot of artists have heard that. And I think, and there's a lot of different versions of that. I just think it really like humanizes, like expressing what you think and feel in a song. It still gets locked to an art form. It gets locked to a piece of
Mhm.
art which people are consuming and then can
Mhm.
treat, whether it's fair or not, treat that just like a commodity. It's
Yeah.
still not humanized the way an artist having a place to just be like, this is what I think. Like my life is more than just the songs that you hear, right? And to be able to share
Yeah.
your perspectives and sort of make it broader and what's really informing, the songs or whatever people are hearing. And
Yeah.
especially the overlap to a performance. right? I mean, the number
Mhm.
of times I thought what an artist was or who they were, and then you see them live and you're like, "Oh, they're nothing like I
Totally,
assumed," right?
totally.
Until you see them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, big time, and I think right now, like, there's so much music out there that there is, like, kind of circling back to the beginning of our conversation, there is this element of, deep connection with the individual with
Mm,
online spaces now where, like, people want to know you a bit better. They want you to kinda just be who you are, and as far as, like, I've been doing the social media and all the artist stuff for a long time and have gone through my ups and downs, my, like, deep hates, for it and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
And now I've kinda just, like, come to the moment where it's like all I can be is myself because, like, at first, different points of, like, wanting to put on a persona so that you can distance yourself, so that you can kinda have some separation and space to breathe and all that, like, there's merit to that, but at the end of the day, if you're just, like, yourself, everything is honest, and you can it
Yeah.
just everything's a lot easier, you can speak what you actually think, and there's space for everything. Like, your audience will find you, and honestly, like, when people are like, "Oh, like, just sing your songs or whatever," it's like, then, like, there are people who will do that, and that's fine, but, like,
Yeah.
people say that to the lowest of the low sometimes, and I'm like,
Yeah.
they've, like they have, like, anti-fascist songs from the get-go, like, what are you talking about? There is
Yeah, and it's like
nothing there's so many artists that are political, like, intrinsically.
yeah, and my life is more than a 55-minute capsule that I put out every 2 years, right? Like, there's a whole lot
Totally.
more to say
Yeah.
than that. It's kind of a ridiculous notion, but, um,
Yeah.
so I'm curious for your career, like, so you got, like, 5 full-length records over you put them out over about a 10-year span, like, but in the last 12
Yeah.
years now, right? Oh,
There's a
I
couple that
see.
aren't online too.
Oh, really? Like,
They're
you mean
secrets. Yeah,
pre-2014?
it's crazy.
Well, I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
You're
I
allowed to
put out
keep
my
that for
first
yourself.
EP in 2009. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It was like it just the project kinda grew out of them, and they were like, one of them especially, I had, like, did all myself on GarageBand, and it's, like, not
Yeah,
very
that's
good,
not for everybody to
but
hear.
I
That's totally
love the
fair.
moments in it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
But,
totally
like,
fair.
I don't know, I think but
Yeah, I
it's but
mean
it's interesting to kinda, like, now it's at this next one that I'm working on now is gonna be number 8. So, like, that's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. 8 to you, number 6 to
8 to
Wikipedia,
me.
number something to somebody else. Yeah, that's funny how
Yes.
that'll, like, play
Exactly.
itself out. But so,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a number of questions. I find it an interesting sort of course through these records and just sort of knowing how a lot of people just navigate their way in a career through scenes,
Mhm.
through the business, particularly in Canada and what it means to be a Canadian artist and funding and their opportunities that can come with it to even grow anything. And I guess the
Yeah.
first question I want to talk is about, again, like we talked a little bit about you just sort of having the blind ambition and the gumption pretty early to just get out and sort of be like, this is the life I want and start doing these things. And inevitably, you need a little bit of luck. You have to keep working really hard and just
Yeah.
learn lessons quickly, learn from people, like what sort of the best choices to make in certain areas. But you also
Yep.
kind of have to meet people. And I'm curious about how you've been able to sort of make connections that you have. So you've navigated your way through meeting Jim Bryson very early, who's had very influential work on a lot of
Yeah.
like formative Canadian artists and bands. From Kathleen Edwards, who I love his work with, to the Weaker Thans and to others. So, and
Yeah.
his own music, I'm a fan of very much. And
Awesome.
most
Yeah, me
recently,
too.
I had on the podcast Ken Yates, who he did like 3 records with
Oh,
Jim,
yeah.
and
That's right.
yeah, and
So good.
and I've always loved Jim's work, and I mean, that's a pretty early connection from you, but then you move from that to doing a like, titled record with, a guy, Sam Cash, who does not have at least, the name recognition of a Jim, like, that's a certain So I guess what I'm saying is like, then you go on
That one
to,
was actually Devin Lougheed.
was it?
Sorry.
Oh man, the internet is
But
killing
then
me
I
today.
did do a single with Sam Cash, for this one song called Scarlet Fever. So it's all, I
Okay.
mean, like, it's all a wash. Things are all
Well, I mean, it
happening
follows the
around the same time.
same thing that I'm sort of moving towards. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, so like you move to some of these different people, you've had opportunities, you get a
Yeah.
chance to, been able to write some songs with like Charlie from Hotel Mira, and Matt Mays, I think, is
Yeah.
on the list of
Yeah.
credits. Like some really interesting writers, and a very
Mhm.
varied. Like when I look at it and I just think about who the people are, to most recently landing with Hawksley Workman, who has a
Mhm.
very, you know, interesting to me. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Actually, Hawksley, he has a very specific flavor. It feels like, and yet
Yeah.
he still seems to be able to produce. Like his production work doesn't stay in a box. You know, it's not like
No.
this is a Steve Albini record, or you know what I mean, type thing.
Totally,
Like,
yeah.
so I think that's a really unique characteristic. But I mean, these are some people, yeah, like that have had impacts on a lot of people's
Yeah.
careers. You've had an opportunity to kind of weave your way through them, but you never did this thing that other people do, which is like, okay, I found somebody who's got a good reputation. We had like some good work together. I got to stick with the formula. And you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like you've moved
Yeah.
through a lot of formulas. So this is what I'm getting at is like, and some of them on the surface are like, oh, that's a big name. And then that's not as much of a known name. And then that's a big name. And then um, I'm just curious how that played out for you. Like, were there intentional choices? Is it again just like
Mhm.
you turn a corner and it's a new open door and you walk through it? Like, how does this
Yeah.
play out?
I think it is kind of, that's kind of how I've always navigated things, is just kind of like, always evolving, always like trying new things. And I mean, I honestly, I think I was just kind of like motoring at such a, like, you just kind of keep the momentum keeps going, and you're kind of like at whip
Hmm.
speed. You're kind of like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I think that's what you have to do too as an independent. Like oh, the funding's here. Oh, this is how much I have to do. So I'm going to do this and I'm going to try this. And oh, I just met this person. There's really good chemistry there. Like, I think that has been a really fun ride. And, maybe not sticking with the formula is sometimes to my detriment. But for me as an artist, it's felt very exciting. Like each new album or sound has an intention behind it, or like
Yeah.
something I'm trying to access in myself, or in, where the live show has been going, or who I'm working with, or like the songwriting, or what have you. There's always been different things that I'm aspiring to, and there is kind of no end, like no finish line, which is really nice. And I've loved working. There's never been someone that I've worked with where I'm like, "Oh, like, never doing that again, better go to somebody else." It was just kind of like where, I don't know, where the next chapter started.
Okay.
And, like, I feel like I've been so lucky to have worked with so many awesome people. Like, Jim was, I think, just a cold call on my part. I was just like, I saw him with the Weaker Thans, and Weaker Thans is my favorite band, and, like, I
Mm.
saw them play when I was living in Edmonton for a hot second,
That's where
and I
I
was
live.
just
I didn't know you were in
really?
Edmonton. Like, what
I
on,
lived there for, like, 6
how hot
months
of
one
a minute?
time.
Okay, 6 months.
Yeah, pretty, and it was,
Okay.
like, the winter months, like, it
Oh,
was,
damn. Well, okay. Well, no wonder you
yeah,
left. Okay.
exactly. Yeah, but I think I came up to him after the show there at the Meyer Horowitz,
Okay,
and that's when I first met him, and then I, like, sent him a message, and then years later, got a Factor grant, and it all made sense, and we made that awesome record together. So,
that's
like,
great.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. So
Yeah.
crazy. And you
How
mentioned Matt
did,
Mays, he's doing my next record, which is
oh,
really
really?
fun.
Okay,
Yeah.
I wanna talk about your next record in a bit, but, um, how did, because I've been able to talk to a number of people who work with Jim now,
Yeah.
and, like, little side note, the band that I had been with for a long time, about the time we decided either we keep going or we don't keep going,
Mhm.
Jim's was the name on the table to be like, "This is who we would want to produce the next record so bad." So but it
Cool.
never happened.
Damn.
But I'm curious because I just see the different work he does, and I'm always interested,
Mhm.
like, how does Jim specifically affect either your songs or the way a record is gonna come out? Or even I'm curious about how he affects your own sort of evolution as
Yeah.
an artist.
I think, so this was, like, with Something Wicked, the
It's a
2016
long
record that
time
we did
ago too,
together.
I recognize.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah,
asking
it's
old
like
memories, but
I feel like
yeah.
now is a really nice time where there's, like, enough distance from it that I'm just looking back and starting to, like, really, what's the word? Kinda process it all, you know? So
Mhm,
it's kinda like it's kinda timely. So, like, we had an interesting thing where we were gonna just do an EP, 4 songs. I didn't know if I had funding or not, then I got funding, and so we're like, "Oh, damn, and we have to, like, make this a full record now." So I, like, wrote a bunch more songs, and, we did the first half at, Lincoln County Social Club in Toronto, and then we did the second half at Fixed Hinge at Jim's studio in Stittsville.
mhm,
And whole other situation of players, like, I like Philippe Charbonneau. Charbonneau played, bass, and then oh my god, it's been so long, I am kicking myself for not remembering this guy's name, but this drummer, he was from Hull, I think, and just, like, it was crazy what he did to some of the stuff, and, like,
hmm,
just Jim and I working away and, like, these little like, Jim's, he's very exploratory, like, he likes little beeps and bloops in the studio, so, like, us
mhm,
just, like, hunting for little things and him coming up with, like, very hooky, cool things, yeah, it was really fun, and, like, I think it took it into places that my music hadn't gone yet. I don't think I
yeah,
had taken the reins as being, as harnessing my weirdness yet, and that allowed
mm,
me to, a little bit, and he encouraged that, and has also, he's done things a little differently, and I think that was, like,
yeah,
seeing that, like, a successful model of that,
that's great.
was a great encouragement, yeah.
Yeah, I think you need I think I don't know how you feel about this. I see because of the accessibility of the tools, the
Mhm,
democratization of the tools in the digital kinda growth age that's happening. I mean, it's been happening
mhm.
for a while, but it just keeps progressing. But you see more people even get encouraged, like, from a young age, like, "Oh, you can just make this yourself."
Yeah,
And I think you can, but you're
yeah,
missing out on the only education this industry gives you because there's no school for it, which is to sit underneath the master, so to speak, at some tier or level. So, I don't know what your thoughts on
yeah,
that are,
honestly.
how kind of the industry keeps moving.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I'm, like, at a point where I've co-produced records, like, the last record I did with Hawksley, we co-produced it, and
Yeah.
that was the first time where I was, like, even in that seat, even though I was already like, he was very, encouraging as well. He was like, "Oh, you're already producing, like, you're just, not, owning it," kind of thing, and I was like, "Yeah,
Not putting the
absolutely."
credit on the record? Yeah.
Yeah, 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 just
Yeah.
like, I mean, like, I think artists have their own visions and stuff like that, but, like, I didn't have the skill set or the language, and so, like, working with him really helped with that, and I think only now I'm looking at, like, what's coming in, like, the future, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I feel like from this breadth of experience being in studios and like I have worked with a lot like people who have very different workflows and different sounds and different like there's no one way to produce something and
Mhm.
that is so liberating, that you can find your own pace and your own sound and your own like way of doing things altogether. So I think
Yeah.
only now am I feeling like excited to, I can work in Logic and like I can make things sound pretty good and I can, kind of experiment from there. Whereas, before I think it's just like it's great to draw from a breadth of experience. Like
Yeah.
like you said, like you can't go to school for that. You
Yeah.
can get a lot of technical stuff that I should probably know from a school environment, but don't
Yeah.
yet. But there is something to be said, like, the merit of that experience is huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Like, you could go to the school for the technical part, right? You could
For sure.
easily go and get that. I had ventured into, like, graphic design and web design,
Cool.
as a career pivot, like, a long time ago, and I went to the only people I knew who might hire me, and they basically made the comment to me, like, I could hire any. I mean, it's a derogatory term now, so I apologize for using it, but he's like, "Any monkey can do Photoshop," was I remember
Right.
the expression, but, I'm looking for somebody with an eye, and
Yeah.
it's the art, right, of it, even
For
though it's.
sure.
And so, I think about that in music, the way we talk about it with, like, you're talking, and interesting you use the word language, um,
Mhm.
and you've, like, again, you've been able to weave your career through a lot of different people kind of coming alongside of you to have their hands on the technical stuff. A lot of different as a solo artist, you've played with a lot of different musicians then, right? Rather than just being locked in
Yeah.
with the same f 3 or 4. Um,
Yeah.
how do you feel like that develops your vocabulary, your language? It's like
Hmm.
traveling the world and picking up, like, different cultures even, right? That
Yeah.
forms this ability. I guess what I feel like in my world is that your ability to translate quickly for people,
Mm. Mhm.
whatever you're doing, every nuance shows. It's that intangible skill that nobody really gets hired for anymore, but everyone wishes they could get a job for how much they know, and
Yeah.
how
Totally.
has that sort of contributed to your life? Because it just sounds like that's probably been an integral part of you developing and staying in this, like, this 12 plus
Yeah.
years career.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel a little bit like a cockroach at this point, like, I can't be killed, like, because there's this, like this element of, changing all the time and being comfortable with adaptation and change, I think is a
Mhm,
huge
mhm.
part in this world. Everything always changes. That's the guarantee. Um,
Yeah.
I think, a lot of the things that I learned out of necessity, I was playing with lots of different people all over the map because like I was just bouncing around solo myself. I literally didn't rehearse with a drummer and a guitarist one time in Montreal and we played a set and like just things like that where it was just like we just kind of like I was able to wing it in a lot of formats. We were talking about the in-ears, but like I spent so many years being having to play without even having a stage monitor, like it's things like
Yeah,
that where it's just like
exactly.
you kind of rough it and you do all these things so then like you can kind of make it work with whatever you can like I played a shed on Fogo Island with no amplification with a six-piece band that I was bringing on tour, and, like, that was crazy, but, like, we just kinda did it, like, the drummer played the, like, snare case as the kick drum and, it's just like
Yeah.
you are always, adapting. I think being adaptive in this world currently is, like, so, so, so important, and also, like, I don't know, I think it's the way to exist together as a society too, like, um, growing up, like, my sister has some physical disabilities and like, we just adapt because that's if
Mhm,
one person needs it, then we all need it. And like that's just what we do. So I think there's like just so much gain for the entire community when we focus on like the needs of like everybody like individually when we can all kind of collaborate and create this network
mm,
of support and existence.
yeah,
There's something to that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's 2 places I wanna go with things, and I'm like, if I go down one, I might completely lose the other, so now I'm, like, trying to think
Choose your own
quickly on the fly,
adventure.
choose my own adventure, which is totally fine. Um, okay, so I'll go this way at first. Just out of a curiosity, like, you're talking about community and some things that are bigger than music,
Mhm.
but just talking about, like, okay, we got, like, these records, you got through to Huxley, and you're at this point now, new music coming out. you said that you work with Matt Mays. Um, so before I ask you about
Mhm,
working with Matt Mays, I'm just curious
mhm,
where your take is, if you have one, of where we're at with this idea of like public funding and how does an artist survive? Like,
mhm,
I mean, there's different ways I've landed with people who are 10 to 20 years so far on this podcast, into their career and
mhm.
how you stick with it, right? And on the outside, a lot of people think like
Yeah,
you've had a lot of luck or you're just really, really good. So of course you have a career but there's all these other things that are so hit and miss in Canada and people would be surprised who is still drawing funding, like up and coming artists. I
yeah,
remember getting super angry if Metric was still getting any public money and so
yeah,
there's all these opinions that fly around on it. But here you are this far into your career and I assume
yep.
that you're still having to adapt the way you just talked about to a very changing landscape. I'm wondering what that landscape looks like from your perspective right now.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was actually just thinking about this today. It's like so funding is amazing. I'm so glad it exists in this country. Like, you go to the States and you meet bands and like that doesn't really exist in the same way there?
Mhm.
So like what a gift to be able to potentially access funding. But at the same time, it's also like, if you put an application in, sometimes you don't find out for like 5 or 6 months. And that can mean that you undergo the endeavor without knowing one way or the other.
Well, they're
And
built to
if it
encourage
doesn't,
you to do it whether you get the money or not, right?
that's
Most of
right.
them? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And like, it does make sense. And I've kind of like shot from the hip in that way with my career as well, is just like going for it in some degree, but also like sometimes I've risked and it hasn't paid off. And sometimes it doesn't feel like a risk at all. It's like, oh no, this seems like it'll be a sure thing. And oh no, like, the left turn. But it's also like I've been able to keep going because like it comes around eventually. Like there's always this like kind of push and pull of that kind of thing, or at least in my
Mhm.
experience. But now is a really interesting time because, like I said, I think all the cracks are kind of showing, and like burnout rates are so high, and like amongst especially independent artists, like tour costs are insane. Everybody's broke,
Mhm.
so, like, people aren't going to shows even. Like, there's people
Yeah.
are going into debt for, like, one big ticket item per year, and all of the, like, indie shows are kind of falling by the wayside with, like, attendance and stuff like that. So it is more difficult than ever. It's also with the online spaces, like, it's awesome to be able to access potentially audiences that you wouldn't have accessed before, but you're on this global stage now, and there's so much music that it's a lot of noise to have to be able to cut through. So then there's all this cost that comes invariably with that, with just continuing. And the bar for independence has changed from not just making a living, like that's the goal, is to make a living at music. It's just to be able to keep going and to keep making music now,
Yeah.
because I feel like there's a lot of people they're dropping off or not able to, like, needing to take like extended leave because of burnout, or because, they're working 2 other jobs to make ends meet and can't make it work. It's
Yeah.
just it's too much. So I think, like, where I'm at with all of that is, before I went down the path of new parenthood, I was kind of going towards this where, like, I I wanna undergo a path of sustainability, however that looks, and it has come around full circle to becoming a lot more DIY for me, as far as, like, keeping a lot of the control in-house, a lot of the touring. It's like, I'd rather have, a house show with 30 people who really wanna be there, who are gonna be, like, listening, they're all buying merch, like, they know the songs, versus, like, a club or a
Mhm.
bar where, like, I have a $300 guarantee and, like, 1 free drink per member, and even if
And
it's,
you're
like, a packed show, it doesn't really make a difference. Like, it's one of those things that I
and you're
think there's.
singing over top of people who are talking the whole time and
Yeah,
how it's
exactly,
a little
exactly.
little soul sucking too, maybe.
Totally.
So
Yeah, so I'm kind of more interested in, like, returning to a grassroots kinda mindset of, like, what back when I did all of my own booking and now I'm doing it again. I'm like,
but
I'm
does that
very interested in that.
does that present a new challenge for you at this age though? Because like we talked about that blind ambition, how people
Mhm.
do it when they're young, and we glorify the hustle in this industry so much.
Mhm.
And that hustle like lends itself to bad financial choices and some mentally unhealthy choices for mental wellness, right? And
Yeah.
so at this age, you look back and you go like, yeah, I developed the skills for DIY, but do I have what
Mhm.
it takes for DIY? Is that present in your thinking and choices at this
Um,
stage?
I mean, it's DIY informed by, 15 years of, like, connections that I've made with people and doing it and
Mhm.
knowing what not to do. And, honestly, I do think that it's, like, more financially feasible than a lot of things. And actually, with this record, like, leaning into a more acoustic realm, like, to kind of my older stuff was the goal, where I would be able to tour as a solo or a duo act and, like, have more
Yeah.
stripped down spaces where, like, I can actually, keep a lot of the money that's coming in instead of, like, it's just so hard with a full band, especially with a solo artist with a full band with
Yeah.
rates and stuff. It's like, it's you're basically, if you're lucky, breaking even on a tour. So, like, it
That's
just kinda
becoming a
changes
common
things.
that's becoming a common
Yeah,
sentiment, and I'm hearing this.
for
I
sure.
mean, I mentioned Ken Yates, and that was the conversation I had with him was about
Yeah.
how your planning of how you're making your record is now taking into mind how what's possible for even touring the record and how am I gonna play this to actually build the kind of income source I need out of this to sustain getting
Yeah.
to the next one. I mean,
Mhm.
that's interesting to me because my initial assumption was gonna be using Matt Mays was going to a louder guitar driven version of music. So it's the opposite of my assumption. And I'm just making assumption off of some of Matt's own music and choices, obviously, that are,
Yeah, for sure, for
but
sure.
so that's very interesting, but that makes a lot of sense if
Mhm.
you're thinking like how you set yourself up for the next leg.
Yeah.
Um, I w I'm trying not to use the word cycle anymore because 'cause I'm really realizing the traditional album cycle is dead in today's world,
Right.
feels like. So, um, but you also kinda touched on a big thing that I wanna ask you about because 'cause you've been very
Mhm.
open about being a mom when you were being even just pregnant and the industry and a perception-led industry. So from the beginning, you've faced sexism and all versions of it, and then as a female, more than a male, like men do to a degree, but not ever anywhere near the women as far as ageism is concerned,
Oh, yeah,
as
totally.
well. I mean, generally anybody over 30 starts to suffer some version of it, maybe more internalized for some than others, but so
Sure.
you've combated both, and you very publicly sort of just decided to, you know, use your music and where you were at and what you were doing to sort of say something about it, which
Yeah.
was pretty cool and not very many people do.
Thanks.
I mean, so the side of it that you just sort of tipped into was just the
Mhm.
financial side of it, right? Of like now you're this idea of risk to keep things
Hmm.
going and how much risk I'm going to weigh to keep the career going has a whole nother dimension of choosing
Totally.
parenthood. And so how has that, well, actually, let me frame it this way for you. Okay. Like you made this iced tea video, which is really cool and really fun,
Thanks.
right? And you had this entire concept and you were I think it said 7 months. I'm so scared of saying
Yeah.
anything right now. I think the internet's
No,
lied to
you're
me about
good.
everything. But you're like 7 months pregnant, so you're like in this perfect time when everyone's like, you're showing so much,
You're
and all this kind of
showing.
phase.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and you do it with like this real rock and roll flames bikini and you're spilling iced tea on yourself literally and stuff.
Yeah.
So the non-important question I have about that
Mhm.
is, did you actually like iced tea a lot, or did it end up like being you know, a a bad thing because like now you had to drink it for over and over for all these takes on a video, and then
Yeah.
you're spilling it on yourself, and now you're sticky for anyhow, was that end up haunting you
There's
that it was
there's
iced tea?
elements there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Honestly, okay, so this is a really funny story. So, like, the video was very awesome to make. Like, it was the first video actually that I edited myself, which was really nice, and I directed it.
Oh, that's
And
fun.
my friend Tegan, so I play in Tegan's band, and we did, like, a trade where I did vocals on her album, and she came and filmed the whole thing. And we did it at my aunt and uncle's house. And I made iced tea, so, like, I didn't wanna, like, load up on, like, Nestea because, like, I'm aware of the sugar content. Like, I know that
Yeah,
as much as I would like to, like, that's gonna suck.
yeah.
And so I made this, like, it was actually, like, a pretty small amount of maple syrup, but like a decaf black tea, just, like, huge thermoses of it that I brought that I was just, like, guzzling, and it was all over me, and I was like, "Oh, it's not as sticky as it would be, whatever."
Oh, that's
But
good.
my aunt and uncle had like, there was residual, uh, dried iced tea on their outside deck where we were, and apparently, like, these huge mega wasps were born
Oh my
of
god.
this.
Oh, yeah.
And there's, like, this huge nest formed, like, just above it, and they were like, "Yo, this is
Just
awesome, like, what's
yeah,
going
just
on?"
set up shop over top of the yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god.
So that did come back to haunt me in a way.
That's
Yeah.
funny. That's funny. I mean, the real question about that song and that placement is just, um, yeah, just facing like that kind of a big question in the industry.
Yeah.
Obviously, and this sort of happens at different times, right? Like, so you see an artist do
Mhm.
some sort of flag in the ground moment, right? Like, there's when a big artist, like a female artist, and I don't know why the name just escaped me, chooses not to wear makeup anymore. Alicia Keys
Right.
starts
Alicia
saying,
Keys,
I'm
yeah.
not going to publicly wear makeup anymore, right?
Oh
Or
god.
some woman's like, I'm not wearing bras anymore, or some sort of version of like just personal protest, right? Which is like,
Mhm.
I'm not letting my lifestyle choices, despite the fact that I'm on, I'm in the public eye and I'm up for public debate, whether I like it or not. So they
Yeah.
don't let those things affect they make some, but it feels, at least from the outside, like putting a flag in the ground moment. But my
Yeah.
curiosity about those things always is after, because, you know, you have to get up the next day, then you keep going and the next day and the next day. And for you, like things don't always change right away. Like, so choosing to like, and I
Mhm.
don't think people think about this from the outside, right? Is like,
Yeah.
for you, it's like, does that mean that things start to change? Does anything become different when you sort of try to express your voice that gets captured in a moment? You know,
Mhm.
so like from then to now, I'm wondering how
Mhm.
you feel about the outcomes of those sort of things, right? That like just
Yeah.
making that kind of video, the song, like sharing the message, talking about it
Yeah.
openly on press or social media. What has it been like since then for you?
I think so that's a really interesting take of, like, the flag in the ground moment, and I think it's, like, what that is, like, recognizing it's like a recognition of, like, "Oh, I never had to do this." Like, I was under the impression that I had to go about my life in a certain way, that it was prescribed to me, and it turns out that, like, I have this agency, and I can just actually do whatever I want, and I can live my truth, and,
Hmm.
I can do that out loud for people, and, like, for me, it was like, I wish I had I don't know, like, I just never I had such trepidation, I think come by honestly of pursuing a path of parenthood while also maintaining my career as an artist of like
Yeah.
I've had so many comments over the years of like people like, oh yeah, they'll just disappear, like, oh, they're pregnant, see you later, like, never seeing you again, just like it's wild even to this day, like the kind of
And
comments that
that's
you hear.
inside the industry. We're not talking about the
Yeah,
public, right? We're talking about
for sure.
the
But,
people
like,
in the business.
within
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, and just, like, the lack of resources, especially for, like, the parents that have to, like, breastfeed and heal after childbirth and things like that, like, for touring, like, it's just non-existent, and
Hmm.
things are changing a lot, but, like, there's so much change that needs to be made. There's like this needs to be talked about. And for so many years I thought it was impossible. I thought I had to choose between my music career and having a kid because that's like what so many people have said and like what seems to be the case. And so like for me, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna do this because like both things are what I desire for my life. And there was like the celebration of this and like this like I don't know, this like flagrant sexiness of like a burgeoning baby bod and things like that. And I think it's for me, it's not over. Like, it's still going, and I think it's
Mm.
maybe for those people as well who are choosing this, like, this way of stepping out of the life they thought they knew. Like, for me, entering parenthood and, like, still going through all of these things, like, that's what the record's about. That's, like, I often will, like, post, a story on Instagram of, like, me breastfeeding before a show or whatever because it's like,
Mhm.
I wish I could have seen those realities when I was younger, and now I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to hide it, and I think it's, like, it's beautiful and funny and exhilarating and, like, all of these things, and, like, I don't want to go back into hiding at any point, and I don't feel like there's some things where it's like, yeah, maybe this had a negative impact on whatever, but, like, for the most part, like, people are celebrating that with me and, like, certain people coming
Yeah.
up to me at, like whether it be, like, a networking event or a show being like, "I am so" like, "This gave me, like, a lot of empowerment," or, "This gave me heart for"
Mm.
the way things are, or like, "I was very excited to see you doing this at all,"
Yeah.
like for them or for someone in their life or for someone they've known. Like I think it's just important to live our truth. And for me, it's like, however I express myself, sometimes it's kind of
Yeah.
like, odd or irreverent or whatever, but it's like it's all part of it and it's all part of life and expression. And if that's like what else is there? What
Well,
else
I
are we
think that goes
doing?
back to what we were talking about earlier, and I think you've done this really well, by the way, which is this, like, normalizing things by, you know, being willing to be vulnerable on the platform of, like, the social media and show your regular
Totally.
life, because even the way you put something out in a song or a music video doesn't have the same impact, not just of showing up, I think, on either social media or just in person or in anywhere
Mhm.
you go, and being yourself and living sort of the truth that you said you found the freedom to have for yourself, and but, like, being consistent, I guess, is what I wanna say, is, like,
Mhm.
it allows you the opportunity to be consistent about it, which is
Yeah.
really where the proof in the pudding about who somebody really is comes from. And a lot of people, I think, disappear from that, either because they don't know how to
Mhm.
sustain it or they think people don't care enough because,
Yeah.
like, they're all requiring different versions of validation to keep going on things.
Yeah.
And when that disappears, you lose the opportunity, I think, to really get the impact that you're talking about, to be able to say, I think it's still going. I also
Yeah.
think it's important, like, I mean, obviously, to me, I thought part of the inside joke of that music video was that the only way that you could be 7 months pregnant and out was to still playfully sexualize it, right? I
Be
think,
sexualized,
yeah,
exactly.
that it has to be
Yeah.
sexualized is the only way we'll allow it out the door, so to speak, and, like,
Yeah. Well, it's
um
interesting when you were saying like, I actually wrote that when I had just turned 30 and I was, like, speaking from, like, an ageism perspective because I like, that's definitely something that you undergo, especially, like,
Yeah,
as a woman, but, like, it now it just, like, brought so much more to the conversation as I was,
mhm,
like, pregnant, and I was like, "Well, I feel hot. Like, let's do this like over sexualized, like big like boo boo
yeah.
lips and like
Yeah, the whole
the
thing.
ponytails and stuff. And yeah, it was really fun. And it was also like it had its commentary and
Yeah,
the
but you need
whole
another
kit and caboodle.
piece to sort of show the other part that keeps going day after
Mm,
day after day, which I think for me, like, you've done such a really good job of that and
thank you.
obviously have stuck with it. Like when I talked about the flag in the ground moment, I think of, like, because I always think, like, in Dead Poets Society, all those
Mm,
kids that stood up on those desks, right? I
Yep.
mean, apart from the ones that took their life. The rest of them had to like come back, you know, after their suspensions or go to another school, and they
Mhm.
just had to like get into a desk again every day for like 6, 7 hours a day. And that you can only imagine that they would be left with questioning like, what was that all for? Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important that people are brave enough to have a moment, or, you know, moments don't just come out of nowhere. They have like tons of history gathering momentum before you finally do
Mhm.
something or say something, right?
Yeah.
But then you need something to tell you like, what was that all for? What was it worth it, right?
Yeah.
And I think especially when you do it publicly, for you to choose to continue to be a person who keeps expressing the value of what all that was for, um, I think we're lacking that a little bit. I think that's a point
Mm.
in artistic expression that doesn't get thought through. Like a lot
Mm.
of people, and maybe because half of us are ADHD and we just like can blast out those huge momentous moments and then we'll
Yeah.
crack afterwards and not be able to follow
Totally.
through. But yeah, I just think the follow through is so important, right? Which is maybe why some of my favorite artists are like a writer like John K. Sampson or other people who like 4 records in,
Yeah.
they're still they're still finding a way to, right, to say something that
Mhm.
means something,
Yeah.
and they're so consistent. Yeah, I think that's really important. I think it's uh anyhow, I just all that comes out of me really appreciating hearing you say like I think it's still going. When I
Ah,
ask you sort of
thanks. That
what the outcome on the other side is, I think that's a great place to be, and I'm really happy that that's the way it's playing out for you. That's pretty
Thank
cool.
you. That's a really insightful way of putting it on your part, so thank you
Oh, well, thank you.
for that. That's really nice.
So tell me about the new record, because I'm really curious about where you're at.
Mhm.
Like I've like I said at the very start, like I've been one of those who like feels I know you obviously a little bit because I've watched your releases, I've watched your music stuff out there. I've known Savannah and Megan from Tiny Kingdom since
Ah,
their
yeah.
days at Music BC way back when, and think that they've done such a great job of they work so hard in creating success in their own career, but then also for other people, and that you're connected
Yeah.
with them in your career. So I've been able to observe a lot. So I've been very curious. You've already sort of answered part of it, whether it's like, is this a
Mhm.
loud record? Are you working with a loud producer?
I
Which way are
mean,
things going? So
yeah.
yeah, I'm curious, like what the timing of the new music coming out is, what you're sort of
Yeah.
hoping it creates for you.
Yeah, so it's almost done, to be honest, which is great. Like it's kind of happened so fast, but also like Gordy, my son, was present for the whole thing. So it
Hmm.
was a very I keep using this word adaptive process, and that's kind of what I wanted. That's like I wanted the rawness, especially in this the world is changing and the AI and all this stuff. I think like I
Yeah,
wanted a very like human element to it, and like woodiness is what kind of the thing that we kept coming back to.
yeah,
And Matt, like the first time that we met, we were on tour and I was opening for him across Canada and he did this like theater show where he started just solo acoustic either on piano or guitar, just him on stage for like 2 or 3 songs, and then he'd bring up another band member, and then he'd bring up another band member. By the end of the night, the seated theater was all standing up, and they were all like complete like rock out extravaganza. And it was so awesome. So he has this like breadth of
yeah,
like this range of sound that I've always really loved. And we wrote a lot together during the pandemic. We just, became friends on that tour and then really liked like playing songs when we didn't have anything else to do, and I just looked up to him so much and became really good pals, and so we went into this project where like, I have a baby, I want to like go do this in a barn where you've built this studio, like there's goats in the back and we're hanging out and like we've already established this rapport over the years
yeah.
of songwriting and touring and hanging out together. So, it just felt like the right move, and it is interesting that we are doing it in kind of like an acoustic lean, but it is a lot it's become a lot louder. There are louder parts in it than I had anticipated.
Mm,
Not that, I
yeah.
like to rock, but
Yeah, that's clear. I mean,
yeah.
I read this is podcasting. I'm finding like it really does fall into this world of press a little bit. Like I never expected that
Mhm.
part. But like so I end up
Right.
reading so much of this stuff as I've been saying. And so like I read about that song Ice T. They said,
Mhm.
I read people use the term returning a little more to like this dark folk roots of Skye
Mhm.
Wallace. And then I listened to it and I'm like, that just sounds like a rock song to me. I don't get where the
Yeah.
dark folk
There's banjo on
is.
it.
Yeah, yeah, just still feels rock and roll to me. But I get that
Thanks.
subjective, right? So I
Yeah.
can see, yeah, I can see how, we sort of frame the nuances sometimes a
Yeah.
lot with what we're doing. But um
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be really curious and to hear how that one
Yeah. It
comes
it's
out.
uh it's yeah, like in the fall I think is when singles are gonna start to drop and then yeah, who knows, maybe like a spring 2027 release?
So yeah, I like we said at the beginning, you have a bunch of shows that are already publicized in
Mhm.
July. Are
Yeah.
these full band shows? Because they're a little more localized, or are you starting to already experiment with like different versions of that performance, sort of based on what you're
So most of
talking
them
about?
yeah. Yeah, totally. Most of them are solo actually.
Okay.
Um, but like a couple of them are full bands like the North Ontario Music and Film Awards. Like we're playing that in 2 weeks and that's full band. But like I'm opening for Hawksley in Oshawa this week solo and then I'm like playing Tall Pines. It's the Unplugged North stage, so like I've hung out with those guys like a bunch and they're just awesome and creating this really cool
Mm,
environment and like shows in Toronto. And Patrick Bateman from SiriusXM is hosting and so that's a stripped down one as well and doing a couple of like secret shows and like backyard shows and things like that around Ontario and then a few more festivals in the fall that aren't disclosed yet. But then yeah, around the fall I have a few announcements like in the nearish future where I'm going to start to showcase this like newer
mm,
configuration and like, probably have the more fleshed out version
yeah.
of what that can look like, but like, have like the 3 piece and like, just showcasing the new tunes and like
Yeah.
having more like listening room style things that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I told you before I was talking with Ken Yates, it feels like similar piece of conversation. I'm curious whether you feel a version where you're a little I don't wanna say scared of the solo act or not. I think, like, he expressed a little trepidation because I think he had gotten so
Mm,
comfortable in the band, but that I think, this is, I think, something specific to someone who's been the solo artist their whole life. Some of them I realize that I've known, like, they were just the early trajectory of their career was internally just being like, I need to grow this big enough so that I can have a band because that's what they really
yes,
wanted, right? And then they
totally.
get scared to death if they have to go backwards, right? To playing by
Yes.
themselves again. And other
Yeah.
people, they are excited because they're like, this is how I started. This is how I've always felt
Mhm.
super comfortable. Like they can totally rock it with anybody
Yeah.
and just by themselves, like Dan Mangan's like this a lot where like
Yeah.
Dan's charm is always going to be just him and a guitar, and
Yeah.
I can't imagine him being anything but comfortable, even though he does really
Totally.
well with a full band.
Yeah.
But there's always just a difference. So I'm just curious where you feel like
Mhm.
you fall on that spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, I love playing solo. I honestly like the biggest shows I've ever played have been solo just because a lot of the times you get these opening slots and
Yeah,
like they're like
true.
we just need like one like tear down has to be 30 seconds and like on kind of thing. Like I
Pick
think
your
like
pedal
Tori
board and
Amos.
run.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So it's like all of the biggest shows I've ever played have been solo opening for like Tori Amos or Laura Jane Grace or Television.
Mm,
It's offered me a lot of opportunities to revisit that, but also it's like it's a different experience where like with a band there's so much to play around with on stage with like the energy of other people and like what they're playing, but when you're solo like you can do more and you can play more, you can stop a song and tell a story right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
uh and like things like that are really fun and like you get to let your freak flag fly a little bit. So I've always loved both, so
Oh,
I'm
that's
happy to be
great.
there.
That's cool. I
Yeah.
had just talked with, actually, I was gonna say his name to you early. Do you know are you aware of a guy named Jacob Brodowski out of Winnipeg?
Yeah, yeah.
So
I don't know him personally, but
I'm gonna tell you you need to because the
yes.
reason I thought about it earlier is, um, so he got introduced to me through my old publicist, Ken Beatty
Mhm.
of Killbeat,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
um anyhow, so I listened and anyhow, so the reason I said, like, he just recorded a record, he's very much a solo artist. It's a very lush record he recorded with the guys from Moon River, um,
Oh, yeah. I love
Gavin
them.
and yeah, so, it's a very lush record, and then, of course, part of our conversations ends up being like, "Do you feel pressure now that you need to go out and reproduce this with the band because you create this lush record as a solo artist?" And he thought it was he leaned to the side. He's like, "No, like I'm gonna play all these folk festivals and they're gonna play with like a 2 piece or 3 piece and then
Yeah.
they'll get a whole new experience if they listen to the record."
Well,
So
that's it. It's like if they wanted to
yeah,
hear the record, they just stay home and listen to the record, and live is so
yeah.
different.
But if Weaker Thans was your favorite band, you have to listen
Yeah.
because the very first thing I heard in him was John K. Samson and the Weaker Thans.
No.
Then I find out
Okay.
then I find out he's a clever guy. He got John to mentor him on his first record and review all of his songs for
Oh
him.
my god.
And
I die.
he's only got 2 songs on his Spotify from the record that's coming out July 10th so far. I listened to the whole,
Mm.
like, private release thing, that they send, but it's so good it might be one of my top 3 records of this year. It is so like, the minute I start listening, I immediately hear one of my favorites. He sounds so much in his songwriting. His voice is Ben Gibbard. He sounds like
Yeah.
Death Cab. He sounds like Death Cab, and then the songwriting instincts are all Weaker Thans, all of them. Like
Oh my god.
even a phrasing and throwing in a ridiculously minute detail that feels perfectly poetic. Um, it's just all there in this capsule. So I'm going
That's
on and on about him
amazing.
to
No,
somebody else on a
I'm in.
podcast. But
I'm
if you're a
in.
Weaker Thans fan, I'd be anyone who would say that. I would be curious for them to go and listen to this guy's new
Okay.
record coming out
I
and see how they
shall.
feel about it. But
Yeah.
um,
Jacob.
well, I'm looking forward, obviously, to new music coming out, and most of all, I get excited by 2 things when I talk to people, Skye. One is when they're enthusiastic about what's next, because it's so easy to just stop in this career, I think.
Totally.
Everything feels like
Yeah.
it's up against you all the time, and yet, you're a long way into this, and you could have a long way ahead of you if you just keep going. So that's exciting. The other thing
That's
that
the
usually
plan.
excites me the most is I can tell because I've been around this industry for like so long. I can tell when somebody's jaded or not jaded in the first 5 minutes we're talking, usually.
Yeah.
Um, and you're not jaded at all. Like you've talked about how you've had your lows and you've learned the hard knocks lessons and you got burnt out and stuff. But it's so
Yeah.
clear that you've found a resiliency and a bounce back, and that
Thanks.
you obviously just are excited about your own career, regardless of all the other factors. So that's
Yeah.
always really refreshing. So that's been appreciated. So, just thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time and like talking
Oh
about
my
your
god.
career and your insights and talking about what's next. So thank
Thank
you.
you. You're a really thoughtful interviewer, so thanks for the awesome, like,
Well, thank you
conversations.
so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love doing this and I love feeling like I get to make friends over a
Yeah.
podcast interview and then
We're real friends, not just on the internet
real
now.
friends, not just internet friends. 100%. But okay, well thank you so much for your time and
Thank
I
you,
look forward to
Glenn.
seeing you out and about.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Hey, I'm Alexi. Stick around for post fame with me and my dad. You look like
I forgot to recline my chair.
You look like Jesus with the light behind
What?
you.
Well, nobody gets to see this part, so they'll
Oh.
have to just imagine. I look like you're saying
End of the
like
tunnel.
the typical, the end of the tunnel
Look
kind
at
of
you.
angelic.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
just, like,
because it
beautiful
shadows out my
silhouette.
face.
It's like I just died and I'm
Like Jesus
ready.
wears a trucker cap, is what you're saying? Because that part's kind of
He
obvious
might.
in the silhouette. Can you imagine Jesus returning wearing a trucker cap? I bet you there's fully motifs in like southern parts of the
I was
US where,
I was just gonna say you're not in Alberta.
or in Alberta, you're right, in central Alberta,
Yeah.
where they have like pictures of like, the ascension where he's like his arms out and it's all
But he's in a
in the
mega hat
glow,
and
but
that,
he's in
and
all the Albertans aren't wearing MAGA hats. They're just
I'm just making a
trucker
stereotype.
hats and Union Jack flags in the back of their truck type thing. But maybe that's me being a little typecasting.
Yep.
Yeah. Hi, welcome to episode 47 of
Yes. Of my post-fame talking point show.
okay, of your new titled ramble.
Post-fame.
Post fame with Alexi.
Post-fame.
Here we are with
Skye.
Skye Wallace.
It's a good name. I was
It is a
thinking
good
that when you
name. Like one that you
had it
don't have to
down.
just make up.
Yeah,
Like you
it's
just
just
get
like
given.
rolls off the tongue. It's memorable though, like not a common name, but it doesn't sound so out there that you're like, oh, she made that up, so she was like
Yeah.
not like other people.
Yeah.
Good name.
Yeah. So there's like, I've been like reflecting a little bit on the conversation ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Just because there's some, I don't know, it's just some things that feel like timely. But I think most of we've interviewed a number of people now. This is 47,
Yeah.
right? I feel like I've kind of hit this place in the conversation when I was like, there were just a couple different talking points that we've all obviously come across like multiple times. And then I just kind of had an awareness of like, where do I slot this in
Mm,
now against sort of all the other things I'm kind of learning? And I just kind of had this interesting, not an aha moment, but an interesting, like just in the middle of talking with Skye of like, I think one of the gifts of talking to all these people is not not forming a judgment on anything, but
mm,
just listening to everybody's take on it.
yeah. You go in with a pretty open mind.
Yeah, I don't think I ever go in with some judgments. Maybe there's a couple times where I've had like pretty solid
I think judgments though of like
conceptions of who they
you've
are,
heard things about a certain person or
and I may feel a certain way
yeah.
about it, which may form closer to that. I mean, I appreciate you saying that, but yeah, I think it was kind of because I can like what I've done, like I can not overthink things, but I just think over things a lot.
Mhm. I
And
like that.
it just felt sort of liberating to think that I don't have to slot everybody in, to this is where this person sits on this kind of issue or this level of experience or any of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, but more, yeah, everyone's got a story about how they got to where they got to.
You know what I was also thinking about? And like based off even just like the notes from like this episode is like you do I mean, maybe a little bit less now than like episode 7 compared to 47, but you do like a relatively good deep dive on people before you interview them. Or not even a deep dive, I should say. You cover your bases in terms of like knowing about someone and a bit of their like path to where they have been. So that you can like
Mm,
ask the right questions, or if there's something like very interesting or unique, you can like make sure, it gets brought up. And I find it so interesting that like you're 47 for 47 for like having background checks basically on people and coming out every single time. Um like learning like new things about someone that like you didn't know or just like you weren't expecting because it's just so interesting because it's like, you can do all the googling, but like
yeah.
it's like it just I don't know, it's like your whole podcast is just the whole like, you can like hear about someone and Google someone all you want, but you don't know them until you've had a conversation with them.
Well, and that's yeah, exactly. And so on point with this one because like it became a little bit of a joke a couple times. Like I just quoted things from Googling them
Mhm.
and they were wrong,
Yeah.
but not like black and white
No.
wrong. Like
You'll hear some detail that
they
goes
were like,
meh
yeah,
here.
yeah. It's like, well, actually, you know, Devin Lahi more produced that record, even though like I did like Notebook LM research
Yeah.
is what I've started to do, right? So I'm like literally asking it to search all the resources when a
Out there,
person
yeah.
has been interviewed, when a person has spoken on a topic, when they've been reviewed about their music or about a performance. Like I'm pulling in all the resources, I'm asking it to synthesize.
Yeah.
I'm asking it about the discography and the producers and the players and the songwriters. Um, and I still get like, I got to probably the third correction on the episode. And I was just like, it's one of those
Yeah.
sometimes where I'm like, okay. But it's also funny to laugh about it. But yeah. And then the other half of that with this conversation was like, yeah. And the other end of it, like I always get to feel like I don't think there's been an interview when I didn't feel like I had been able to make some version of a connection to that
Yeah.
person. Some of the even even the people that I really, really knew well,
You, like, got to know them better.
yeah, there's a version or a side of them I got to dig into further. And yeah, I think that that's really special too. I think that was felt a little more apparent to me. And then it just helps like the appreciation of Skye to me was that I didn't know what to expect. So I allow the I allow the pleasant surprise, like, I wear it outside of myself when it happens in
Yeah.
a podcast. I don't, like, hold my cards close. Like, if I'm pleasantly surprised at somebody because I had no idea what demeanor or
Mhm.
what thing they would bring in, if they're really, like, gracious and they're really sort of willing to, go places or, like, talk about things. Yeah, so
And you let them know too, which I love.
pardon?
You let it be known.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was, in this episode, I was like, I had to tell her. I mean, so here's the crux, like, because you were talking before about like, like a lot of a lot of this stuff. I tried to create some like talking points, like I always do for
Yeah.
you,
Or
and
just so they don't
or
a
just
total
like,
stranger.
yeah, just kind of like using summary tools online to sort of take a transcript and just like
Yeah, so you're not
help
off
you.
base.
Yeah, just sort of help you be able to have a quick like I can refer back to this and this and this and this and get a larger understanding. And they kept zoning in on the same parts of the conversation,
Mhm.
which was just about, her sort of version of an activism, though she wouldn't call herself an activist,
Yeah.
but just confronting the very just real things she faces in life and felt in music industry of sexism and ageism. Um, but I felt the most unique part of the conversation, which then I, like, really wanted to compliment her afterwards about of saying, like, "This is something I think you do really, really well," and
Yeah.
which was, I felt compelled to ask the question of, right, that, like, lots of people do a thing where they kinda put a flag in the ground somewhere, right? It's like,
Mhm.
"I'm gonna either take a stand with this or I'm gonna say something,"
Yeah.
and that thing might get to be big because if you're a musician and then it picks up press or it picks up online talk,
Mhm.
right? It might get bigger. Anyhow, I always kinda and I told her, I said, "It's like, it comes from this thought I was having," which is like, the kids that stood on their desks in the Dead Poets Society famous scene, like, eventually, they're gonna have to go back to school and just sit in those desks like a regular student again,
Yeah.
but they were trying to change something, and then this is sort of common thread to all that sort of theme, but so, like, what does that look like? Like, what is like, how do they feel about it 6 months later or a
Mm.
year later, right? And so I just asked her, I'm like, like you sort of decided to take some big swings and some bold moves. Um, I said, like, what have you learned from that in the time since then? Like,
Yeah.
what does it feel like on the other side
It's
of
like, what's
that?
the update? Because everyone can, like, I mean, not
Yeah,
perfectly, but anyone can imagine, like, when that big swing is taken, like, how that person might be feeling. But, like, no
yeah,
one understands or could, like, maybe even imagine, like, the aftermath.
yeah. What's the other side of that look
Yeah.
like, right? And my favorite thing about her answer was like, I'm still doing it,
Mhm.
right? And anyhow, I just thought that was really needed applauding, and she could articulate it really well. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I sort of had these perceptions that she's, a little bit badass, a little bit like out
She does seem
out out
badass.
with it, like
Mhm.
and a little punk rock in just her approach and demeanor and all that kind of stuff. Which then you just kind of wonder, are they going to bring an edge to a conversation,
Yeah.
right? And
Especially because like, there's a lot of things about, like, her being, like, unfiltered, like, in a positive way,
yeah,
But then you're like, yeah, like, on a podcast, like, are there gonna be things about, like, a hosted podcast situation that she finds, like, need to be challenged or
yeah, and they're doing they treat this like press,
Mhm.
right? And everyone has a different relationship to that and how they feel about it. And in a long form conversation where I might start, asking questions that expect a real answer, like, I don't know, maybe somebody's going to push back on that. Um,
Yeah.
anyhow, she was delightful immediately right out of the gate. Um, so I have a deep appreciation for Skye
Yeah.
and, kind of for lack of a better term, just kind of puts wind back in the sails, kind of for what I love about doing this.
I like that.
Yeah, which I, frequently need.
And cool too that you find that, like, after interviewing someone, like, you don't, like, have a connection with prior. Like, right? Like, like,
Yeah,
specifically,
yeah,
you never know, like, how an episode's gonna turn out, what's gonna come of it, how you're gonna feel after, like, you know the before, you don't know the during or after, and I find it really cool, especially when it is someone, like, you don't know, or even there's some people that you, like, have had, like, connections of people with, and so you have, like, some kind of a grasp, but when it's someone pretty brand new,
yeah,
like, it almost makes it more, like, exciting.
yeah. And obviously, as this continues, like we'll probably won't have to talk about it as much because the longer this goes, the more I'll have worked through everybody I know,
Mhm.
and increasingly, like what has even happened this year, I start getting introduced to people that I don't know, right?
Yeah,
And people that are doing music. So yeah, I think that's kind of cool still.
I like it.
I'm going to be looking forward to that, but, um, so fun episode. I'm really glad. And if there's people, and again, this is also really quickly, I am reminded of this feeling like if there's any small part that like the podcast plays in introducing people to a musician,
Mm.
an artist, I love that, and I really hope that people can go get acquainted because I think that she has a really strong, like, discography, and it's one of these people that it's like, "Who? Oh, I'll go check the person out," and then you're gonna find that she's got 10 years and 5 albums
Yeah,
under her belt,
and
you know
then
what I
you're
mean?
like, "Where have I been?"
And it's yeah, like somebody's had a career, right? And you
Yeah,
don't know it, and that's always maybe one of the coolest parts about doing this. Yeah, so I love that. But yeah, okay, so I wanted to ask you
ooh.
about some stuff, and then I did ask you, and then you said save it for the podcast. So
What?
yeah, you said I was gonna ask you questions about
What was
what
the
you're
odd
into, and then yeah,
question?
but then you were like, "Oh, I'm into making playlists right now." That's kind of how I'm feeling about
My
my
music.
music and stuff. I'm just into, and so I wanted you to unpack that
Oh,
a little bit, and then you said save it for podcast, which is pro move. I appreciate it. Good
thanks.
for you. So here's your chance to tell me, I
Okay,
guess.
I'll give context, though,
Okay,
for
well,
everyone
that's what we
listening,
need.
is I was asked what I'm listening to lately and if anything's new, And nothing's really that new because, and this is what I was saying, is that lately I've just been making a lot of playlists. And I typically don't do a ton of new music when I'm in that era. I just go back to a lot of old stuff and then here and there. But I'm slowly chipping away at getting rid of old playlists I haven't listened to in many, many years and making new ones for different, this current version of myself and the
Mhm.
moods and
Mhm.
things I get in. Um, yeah, I'm halfway through making one right now, and it's very basic right now, but it's called Rainy Summer Mix because Edmonton has been rainy. Um, and it's a very, very rainy start to the summer. And so, yeah, I had that one. And, what was my other? Oh, I just did a race this weekend. So I had spent some time making a race mix. And I also had to drive to that race, so I just remade because my old mountain road trip playlist was very old. So I made a new one that's just
Mhm.
called Summer 26 Mountain Drive.
Okay.
And I really have been messing with that one.
Love it.
And then I just started this one tonight, but a wine night playlist for when I have people over for wine night. Um,
Good call.
yeah, because that one's hard. I find Like, tomorrow night, for example, I'm having some friends over. We're gonna have a little bit of wine and play some board games. And I'm like, you don't want to be listening to anything too energetic, but you also don't want to listen to
No,
anything
no,
that
listen.
demands too much of your time and
That kind of event in your
concentration.
20s is the very reason we make playlists.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, going all the way back to, like, high fidelity and doing the, the mixtape for
Yes,
somebody, the concept that they all had to sort of you have to curate the
the
right
vibe.
thing so the wrong one doesn't slip in there.
That's what I'm saying. So
That's perfect.
that one is not long enough.
I'm such a successful father. I can't
Yeah.
even deal with it.
But yeah, those are my main ones right now. The rest I'm just deleting. Or there's a few that I don't want to fully delete. So I've been able to combine a couple. Um,
What if you had a song that was only on one podcast anywhere and then or podcast playlist, and then you delete the playlist and then realize like,
and it's not
"Oh, I
meant.
can't find that song anymore."
It's not meant. If I can't remember a song, it's not meant.
Okay, well, our brains aren't perfect.
Mm, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, well, that's fun.
What about you, King?
Oh, what a season actually, and it snuck up on me. So, like, not only I had talked at length about Francis of Delirium being
Yeah?
a new artist I really liked, and
There's a lot of new music
the
out right now,
full
by the
record
way.
came
Yeah.
out that a bunch of the singles that I was enjoying
Ooh,
on, particularly, like, Little Black Dress is such a good banger of a tune.
okay.
Um, and then Bleacher's full-length record was out for a while, and I felt
Yeah.
like maybe was I just too busy to pay attention? So I started just giving it front to back listens.
Mm,
And I like it as a front to back. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's generating the banger hits like a couple of the early records.
yeah.
Like it doesn't have a roller coaster on it, doesn't have a
Yeah.
but it's got like a bunch of really good ones that I look forward to hearing every time. And I love me some Bleachers. So
Yeah.
that was exciting. Steven Wilson Jr. put out a new single called Preacher's Kid. You know, spoiler alert, I'm a preacher's kid.
Yeah.
And it's a real loud, heavy, visceral song,
Oh.
and he's not sounding favorable to, like, the cliche of a preacher's kid. So the cliche was sort of like the preacher's kid can just sort of, like, put on a smile and sort of win the charm of all the people in those
Yep.
circles just because they're the preacher's kid, but then they're really, like, the most rebellious
Yeah.
kid around. Kind of this cliche of teenagers. That wasn't me, by the way, I was perfect, but
Right.
yeah, the chorus is like, "Preacher kid doesn't give a damn about you or Jesus." And I'm like, "Oh, that's a message."
Yeah.
Anyhow, interesting, but,
Oh, there's a
um
but.
oh, there's a but. Like, maybe gonna compete for my album of the year
Oh.
is an artist named Kevin Morby,
Oh.
a guy who has been at our folk fest and I missed. and then got introduced to by my best buddy Greg, and has some incredible music. And then his new record, I just like it so much, song after song. And the way I would characterize it is this: is I thought on the last record I heard of this guy, I thought I was listening to like the fully realized version of him.
Mhm.
And then I listened to this record and I'm like, this is more mature.
Oh,
Like, I'm not saying like the songs are all better or that kind of stuff. I'm saying like the front to back version of this just feels like, oh, this guy knows himself even better
I like
as an
that.
artist
Like, he
now.
had some growth.
Yeah, like you can just sense like when a guy doesn't have to try as hard to convey even more.
Yeah.
Like they know themselves better as an artist.
I
And
like that.
I loved it. And then shocker yesterday while I'm in the airport is there's new music from Interpol, and
Oh,
Interpol, had some of the most iconic kind of indie rock out of the 2000s, later 2000s, right?
yeah.
The Turn on the Bright Lights record, and like right in the middle of everyone with like when they talk about like the Strokes' first record or the Killers' first record or like, yeah, the Interpol was just like right there, like such a unique voice and sound. And so I was so surprised. And there's like a little 2-song,
Cute.
yeah, release that I really love. So when my cup is full of new music, then
We're
I'm
happy.
a much happier man.
We're
So
fulfilled.
yeah.
You know, I almost got my hands on Phoebe Bridgers tickets today in Vancouver, and they were too expensive, so I
Did they
backed
go on
out.
sale?
Yeah, I got pre-sale.
I totally forgot about that. I was
And then I
looking
was
at
like,
that the other
actually, I'm
day.
poor. Because you know what? I was going to buy them and then resell them and be a total jerk about it, which I never do. But I was going to for Phoebe Bridgers. Um, and then I remembered that Ticketmaster, if you sell them, you don't get paid till a week after the concert.
Until the
And I
concert.
was like, what am I thinking? I'm a poor university student. I can't float that. So,
Yeah, you gotta be committed to a long-term investment.
yeah, and I was not. Sorry,
Yeah,
Phoebe. But I really like, we need to talk about this next episode. But
okay.
I'm just going to say what we're going to talk about is that she's doing a no phones
Yeah, I saw that.
tour.
I saw that, which is interesting. But here's the thing. Yeah, I'm gonna sound like a grumpy old man, but
That's what you're paying for a little bit?
yeah, well, no, I mean, no, I'm gonna say, I mean, good for Phoebe
Mhm.
in every way, except I don't want to pay that much money to see Phoebe in an arena. Because
No,
to me, Phoebe Bridgers' music is
not
nothing
arena.
with like an arena music. And I know I probably said that about Noah Khan before we went to that show.
But
And
I
then
think Noah is
I
arena
thought he kind of nailed it. Well,
to an extent.
I mean, let me put it this way. Like he's got like some pretty basic acousticy, like sad bastard music,
True.
but that album, at least that he built all that off of, like is really full of hooks that
Yeah.
people turned into personal anthems.
Yeah.
So yes,
It felt boomy enough that I was like, this will be fine in the arena.
well,
I don't want to
I
be a
call
sad
it,
girl in a big arena.
yeah, I call it that they Mumford and Sons it.
Yeah.
Like Mumford and Sons starting off as like what they would play at Folk Fest, right? With just like not even a drum kit, like just a standing, anyhow. And yet they've kind of figured out how to play arenas and so it's not hard for the artist to do. I'm just saying, like, to me, that's just not what that is. It was an easy one for me with Noah Khan because I wasn't that deep into
Yeah.
Noah Khan history. But I've been listening to Phoebe Bridgers since she's first made music,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah, I would never want to.
deep
And
into
like
it.
in the
It would just be harder for me.
well,
And
I was
then
thinking
yeah,
about the Vancouver, like the big Vancouver stadium. I was like, I saw Tyler the Creator there, and like he's perfect for a stadium that big because it's like super energetic. His
it's
set
the
is
same as
massive.
our stadium, but
No, I know,
okay.
but I'm just thinking. I was thinking because it's specifically that one. And I'm saying I saw Tyler there, specifically that one.
You mean arena, like in the hockey arena?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like he had this massive set, it's very loud, like there was lights and there was this and there was that. And I'm like, yeah, perfect. But, like, again, yeah, her, like, the no phones I get will help make it more intimate. But, yeah, I just can't justify it on a
That's
Rita
fair.
show.
That's fair.
And she's not coming to Edmonton, so I have hard feelings.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not surprising. But oh well, that's all cool.
Yeah.
We'll maybe we'll pick up on some of those themes on the next one.
Yeah.
All right.
Alright.
Okay, that's it for us. Bye. Love you.
Bye.